What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected actors reaches his breaking point on live television? When years of frustration spill over into a tense confrontation that leaves everyone in the studio speechless. Today we're looking at the moment Samuel L. Jackson completely lost it on Good Morning America. You won't believe how it all went down. Make sure you subscribe and leave a comment below because this story gets intense. The morning started like any other at the Good Morning America studio in Times Square. Jackson was scheduled for what should have been a routine promotional interview for his latest film. The legendary actor, known for his strong presence and no-nonsense attitude, settled into the interview chair across from Michael Strahan. The cameras rolled. The red light signaled they were live, and what happened next would shock morning television viewers. Strahan, smiling as usual, started the interview. "Samuel, great to have you back. Your new film is getting a lot of attention. But before we talk about that, I want to ask about your comments last week regarding diversity in Hollywood." Jackson's expression tightened. "Which comments specifically?" "You mentioned that despite all the talk about progress, Hollywood still plays games with real representation. Some thought you were being overly critical of an industry that has given you great success." Jackson leaned forward, voice edged with intensity. "Overly critical? Michael, how long have you been in television?" "About 8 years with Good Morning America, but I've been in broadcasting much longer." 8 years? And in those 8 years, how often have you been told to tone down your opinions on things that matter? How often have you been told speaking your truth might hurt your career? "Samuel, I think we might be going off track." Strahan tried to steer the conversation back. "No, we're on track. The moment I say diversity, suddenly I'm overly critical. The moment I point out we're fighting the same battles we fought 20 years ago, suddenly I'm supposed to be quiet and grateful." The camera operators exchanged glances. This wasn't going as planned. Strahan tried to stay composed. "No one is asking you to be quiet, Samuel. You're one of the most successful actors alive. Your voice carries weight." Jackson laughed sharply. "Weight? Michael, do you know how many meetings I've been in where I was the only person who looked like me? Do you know how often I had to explain why representation matters? Why diverse stories are not just good business, but the right thing to do?" "But surely there's been progress," Strahan said, trying to soften things. "Progress? Progress is not having a few faces like ours in power and calling it a day. Progress is not casting diversity and then whitewashing the posters for other markets." Strahan pressed on, walking into dangerous territory. "Samuel, don't you think focusing on these issues might overshadow the positive work you're trying to promote?" Jackson's eyes narrowed. "Overshadow the positive work? Every role I take, every project I join, every time I stand in front of a camera, I carry the hopes of people who look like me. That's not a burden. That's responsibility." The studio fell silent. Strahan, realizing he'd pushed too far, asked, "Isn't it possible focusing too much on these issues creates division?" Jackson's face shifted through disbelief, anger, then pity. "Division? Michael, are you seriously suggesting that speaking about inequality is the problem?" Strahan tried to clarify. "That's not what I meant." "No, it is. This is exactly the problem. The moment someone like me says, 'Hey, we have issues to address,' suddenly I'm the angry black man who needs to calm down. Suddenly I'm creating division." Strahan attempted damage control. "I think there might be a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding. You asked," I answered honestly, "and apparently honest answers make people uncomfortable when they come from someone like me." The tension crackled. Millions of viewers were glued to their screens as Jackson's controlled intensity dominated the studio. Strahan tried to defend himself. "I just want a balanced conversation." Jackson's laugh was bitter. "Balanced? When was the last time you asked a white actor if they were too critical talking about issues they cared about? When was it called divisive for them? Different, right? Because they're white." The cameras kept rolling. Jackson didn't shout, but his intensity filled the room. "Am I putting words in your mouth? From where I sit, you're asking me to package my truth to not make anyone uncomfortable, to smile and nod while pretending the table isn't tilted. Nobody asked you to do that." Silence fell. Jackson leaned in, voice heavy with years of frustration. "You don't even realize you're perpetuating the same system I'm trying to change." Strahan looked shaken. "I'm not following." "Of course not. You've never had to wonder if speaking your truth will cost you your next job. You've never had to be diplomatic while people question whether you deserve to be in the room. And now, instead of asking about my craft, you're questioning whether I have the right to speak about issues affecting my community. The impact hit Strahan like a blow. Jackson continued. Your job, Michael? Your job is comfort. My job? Speak the truth even when it makes people uncomfortable. We are not the same, Strahan tried to defend himself. I resent that implication. You resent it? I've been here 10 minutes while you tell me advocating for my community is divisive, that I should be grateful, and then resent me for pointing out your behavior. The studio was completely silent. Jackson stood up, tension radiating through the room. The problem is people like you think sitting in that chair gives you the right to decide what people like me can be passionate about. Please sit down, Strahan said. Rational? Jackson laughed bitterly. Nothing I'm saying is irrational. What's irrational is expecting me to be grateful for being questioned about my right to speak my mind. For 15 minutes, you questioned my tone, my focus, my approach. If that's not questioning my right to speak, what is? Strahan tried to reset. Can we start over? Start over? You can't undo what's said, Michael. This is why these issues matter. This is why I can't just smile and talk about movies as if everything's fine. Jackson leaned in, voice dropping. You want to know what creates division? Not people like me speaking truth. Division comes from those in power who try to control how we express frustration with a broken system. The studio was silent. Millions watched. Strahan, frozen, admitted, I never intended this direction. Intentions don't matter. Impact does. And this conversation shows the thinking that keeps these problems alive. Strahan tried again. I just wanted to present different perspectives. Whose perspective? Not someone who understands being questioned every time they speak truth about their experience. Jackson stood tall, dominating the studio. After this, people will say I overreacted, I was angry, I was unprofessional. Nobody will ask why it was wrong to challenge the system or question my right to advocate. Jackson finally sat down, posture rigid, eyes locked on Strahan. Real progress is talking about inequality without being called divisive. Real progress is advocacy being respected. Real progress is not questioning whether I have the right to care. Strahan nodded slowly. I think I owe you an apology. You don't owe me anything, Michael. But you owe it to yourself and viewers to understand this is the work. Hard, uncomfortable, necessary work. I've been in this industry 30 years. I've seen how visibility is mistaken for equality, representation for power, progress for arrival. What do you want people to take away? Strahan asked genuinely. Speaking truth isn't divisive. Ignoring truth is. Success doesn't silence my conscience. It amplifies my responsibility to those without a voice. Jackson stood one final time, interview over. He extended his hand. Strahan shook it with genuine respect. Thank you for having me. I hope people rethink what it means to advocate for change. As Jackson walked away, cameras continued rolling. The studio remained silent. And that's how one of Hollywood's most respected actors delivered a masterclass in standing firm on your principles, even when it's uncomfortable, difficult, and absolutely necessary.